The Hogs are back on the field in Fayetteville, getting ready for the 23 season. It's just about a month away, and we are going to break it down right here with Ty Hudson from Tusk Talk with Ty, and get on over there right here on YouTube and check out what Ty's got to offer. Hey, Ty, what's going on?
What's going on, Mark? How you doing, man?
I'm doing well. We are less than 4 weeks away from football.
It's in the air. You could smell it.
Yep.
And it's fantastic.
Not that we've got too many questions about the guy that's going to make the offense go there in Fayetteville, KJ Jefferson, 68%, 24 touchdowns, 5 picks. And he's just about as lethal as anybody once he decides to tuck it and run. No corner or safety wants to see him headed their way. So your thoughts about KJ Jefferson?
Yeah, really excited. Third year as the head, the leader of the offense, 3 years straight. That's always lovely to have back. He's I think that this is a year for him. He knows he has to set out and accomplish something big because there's no doubt he's ready to go pro. He wants to get the draft stock up and wants to put on a show for everybody in 2023. Maybe break some I don't want to say the wrong opinions of the Razorbacks, but certainly there are some folks. I think Vegas has Arkansas at something like 7 wins on the year. You know, there's not a lot of high expectations for the offense this year, despite having, arguably one of the top quarterback, running back duos in not just the SEC, but maybe in college football. Not the best, but up there, certainly. And despite that, there's still some folks that just aren't really that thrilled. So I think he, wants to change some minds and opinions. And obviously, you know as well as I do, you got to do that on the field. You got to prove everybody wrong. And I think that's going to be their goal this year obviously to win games. I think Rocket actually came out and said that's what's on his mind, not yardage, but winning games, which is so good to hear. But KJ, I think, wants to prove people wrong. And I know Dan Enos is certainly, if I had someone to choose from, if I were Sam Pittman, I don't know. He would be on my short list to bring to Arkansas. So we'll see how the two of them, how they mesh as the season unfolds, KJ and Dan Enos.
Yeah, so has Enos given us any indication as to whether this is the Dan Enos of his first day at Arkansas, or if he's a different guy with a different scheme, or he feels like he's going to change anything to fit the current roster?
I know he did do an interview with Hogs Plus, and I have not watched it. I don't know how long ago it was released, and I don't know that maybe he did express what he wants to really do with the offense. But listen, through spring camp, what I noticed was, man, they certainly do like to run the ball in camp. They ran, and it was 2 tight end sets. It was lone back, 2 tight end set. Didn't see a lot of strong eye, fullback. Didn't see much of that. But these days it's not really a fullback anymore. It's just the tight end moving in motion, and then he's going to be the pop out blocker. At least in this day and age of the RPO, the fullback is eliminated. No more Mike Allstotts these days. But I believe you're going to see. I want to call it a spread pro style offense. I think is what it's going to look like. I think it's going to be it's going to be a pro style offense, but it is going to be a little bit of spread. There's going to be RPO. It's not the veer and shoot that Kendall Briles ran here the last 3 years, but it is going to have heavy elements of the RPO. You're going to see KJ under center. You're going to see KJ with a running back behind him in the pistol. It's going to be a different look for people who got used to the Kendall Briles offense the last 3 years. And who knows too, man, they could come out with the old wing T. I really don't know, or the wishbone offense for all we know. But I don't think so. I don't think it's going to be anything that wild, but I kind of get the sense that Sam Pittman, just when people ask him about Dan Enos or when he's been asked about the offense, you always kind of feel like he's leaving something out. Like there's something more going on. Maybe that's just my suspicious nature. I don't know, but more than likely, it's probably going to be a pretty heavy version of what we saw in spring camp. He's going to work with what he has. I think that's kind of Enos' style. He walked in 2015. And I mean, the offense is one of the top 3 offensive performances in Razorback history in terms of yardage, breaking over 6,000 total yards of offense. They've only done that 3 times, and Enos was the guy the first time around in 2015 to do that. So I don't know if they do that again. If they break 6,000 yards, that would certainly be great. There's still a lot more that goes along with that, but you got to have the defense helping you out and special teams, and you got to win a lot of field position battles and whatnot, and score quick and often, and gobble up a lot of yards quickly. And I don't know if he's going to do that or not. I know year 1 at Maryland, they were pretty effective. I think they tied some kind of bowl record in Maryland history in points scored in a game or something in a postseason game. So, I don't know what they bring to the table this year in terms of what we really want to call the offense. That seems to be, and I get it because I'm the same way, everyone wants to put a name on it. What is this offense? And I think at the end of the day, it's just going to be the Enos. I want to be given an excuse to call it the Enos Express. But in order to do that, you got to put up a lot of points. You got to score a lot. You got to be highly effective, probably like a run game, have a lot of success on the ground, like the Pony Express at SMU back in 1980. I'm itching to call it the Enos Express, but he's got to prove that on the field this year, right? With the right production, got to score a lot, put up a lot of yards, and be successful in the red zone. Something Arkansas was not last year. But yeah, I don't know, Mark. Hopefully fall camp we get a really better idea at least before they take on their week 1 opponent of what they're trying to do on offense.
If I see 40 or 45 points on the board for the Hogs the first few weeks of the season, I'll be looking out for that Enos Express nickname.
I'm itching to call it that, the Enos Express.
Hopefully it doesn't become the Enos Slug, the Enos Caterpillar, or the Enos Turtle, or I don't know where else we would go with that. But the Enos Express rolls off the tongue much better than anything else I offered for what the negative side of that could be. So it seems meant to be. All right. Jacoby Criswell may have to fill in. Nobody wants to see KJ on the sideline unless there's a 4-touchdown lead. How comfortable are you if Jacoby Criswell has to step in during a meaningful portion of a game, or maybe carry it for 1 or 2 or 3 games?
Last year I thought, and this was based off what we got to see from Malik Hornsby. It was the fact that Malik was, they pulled him out of the portal, and also what Sam Pittman told the media. He told the media, and I want to say this was going into fall camp last year. Someone asked him, how does Malik Hornsby look? And Sam's response was always night and day, in a positive way. It's night and day, how much better, how much more comfortable, and how much better he is just as a passing quarterback, or as the complete package. Well, as we found out, Arkansas didn't really have a QB2 last year. We all bought into the hype. I was guilty of it. I thought for sure, he did look comfortable. When I saw him throughout fall camp and when I saw him in practice, he did look pretty comfortable. But when the lights came on, he slipped. I mean, he looked horrible. Now, he had a couple of moments. I think the Mississippi State game, he certainly had a couple of really nice moments. His total production wasn't atrocious, but he couldn't consistently lead the offense down the field. And the game just seemed too big for him, against Mississippi State. In a game that Arkansas lost, obviously without KJ, he wasn't in that game. Shouldn't have played in the Liberty game. And then he was out for LSU, and Arkansas barely lost that game in Fayetteville. But they never had a QB2 last year. Cade Fortin he's not a backup quarterback in this league, at least based on what we've seen so far. And I made that comment on here last time, and I stick by it until he proves me otherwise. Jacoby, also a 4-star. He's actually from the state of Arkansas. So he is a native. He's back home from North Carolina. I've seen the good. I've unfortunately I've not had the ability, or I should reach out to some folks at North Carolina and ask them up there like what their thoughts were of Jacoby before he left. I will say through spring camp, he started off rough like they all did, and then the conclusion of spring camp, he looked fantastic. Now, again, it's going to be the same situation. God forbid they need him, because obviously, like you just alluded to, if that is the situation, then Arkansas's in some trouble, right, without KJ. I don't know if I do feel better. I will say that. I feel better because this is not a guy they've talked about moving out to wide receiver. I don't know if you remember this, but last year you and I talked about Hornsby moving out to wide receiver. And I said, that's a red flag for me. That's really strange. And of course, we saw how that unfolded. He was not a quarter. He just wasn't ready. The stage was just too big for him. Jacoby's the opposite. Jacoby, it feels like he's just kind of tailor-made, and I hope he grows out of it. I'm sure he will, but he feels like he is tailor-made to be a backup quarterback in this league. I loved his arm. I loved what I saw in spring camp. But again, when the lights come on, that's something else entirely. We won't really know until we actually, see him go out and perform. But I do, and I feel strange saying this, just like I did last year. I thought they were comfortable at the backup spot. But once again, here I am telling you, I feel pretty good about him as a backup, about their situation. Now, you get behind him, they're in trouble. They're in big trouble. There's a pretty big drop off at that spot at quarterback, because you've got true freshman, then you got Cade Fortin, and the freshman's not ready yet. Maybe we'll see what happens through fall camp, but yeah, you're going to need both those guys to stay healthy this year. That's 100% sure.
Ty Hudson's here breaking it down for us. Arkansas football headed toward week 1, about 4 weeks away. You can catch Ty on Tusk Talk with Ty. It's right here on YouTube, so check it out. You mentioned Rocket Sanders is concerned about winning football games. He doesn't have to necessarily be concerned with racking up yardage because he's that talented, and as long as he stays healthy, 1,400 yards plus, 10 touchdowns last season. And it's not just Rocket Sanders. This is a deep running back room.
Running back, I think I had as the strongest position, even above quarterbacks. Now, obviously, like I said, I just don't know enough about Jacoby Criswell to say, oh, they're 100% fine there. They're going to be great. I don't know that yet because we just don't have a large enough sample size from him at North Carolina. He got passed up by freshman phenoms at North Carolina, 2 different guys. Maybe a little bit of a red flag there, but maybe not. But it's different with the running backs because all these guys have had plenty of carries, plenty of playing time. AJ Green, who's probably either going to be RB2 or RB3, regardless, he's going to get carries. He's now going into his junior season, just like Rocket. Both those guys were highly touted 4-stars out of high school. And then they added another big-time – well, I won't say big-time running back because he wasn't overly hyped up coming out of high school, but Rashard Dubinion, who was fantastic last year. I mean, when he made the most out of every opportunity that he was given, and he ended up with averaging just 4 yards a carry, but he did have 5 rushing or hang on, let me pull that up, make sure that's right. 5 rushing touchdowns. Yeah, 5 rushing touchdowns, averaging just 4.1 yards per carry on 71 carries, 293 yards. I thought he made the most, and they also put him in some pretty tough spots too. They put him in some rough spots against defenses that were crowding the line of scrimmage. I think it was maybe Liberty that really kind of held him back and hurt his yard per carry number. And 71 is not a large volume, of carries. So I think that number is probably going to jump this year for him, but it is absolutely loaded. We also found out Dominic Johnson was medically cleared. I don't remember if that had been the case the last time I was on the show or not. But Dominic Johnson has been cleared, and he was a guy who, got hurt early on in the year. He had 8 carries, 43 yards, 5.4 yards per carry. But the season before that, he had a really good year, and he certainly seemed like he was going to be RB2 or he was going to be heavy in the mix last year until the injury. You're talking about a guy that's listed at 6'1", 6'1", about 250 pounds. So we'll see through fall camp what he looks like, but he has been medically cleared to be a full participant in fall camp. So they're deep. And again, I graded them. I gave them an A. It is the highest group among any position that I have for Arkansas on either side of the ball. It's nice. And Dominic Johnson kind of feels like the cherry on top,
Sam Pittman's baby is the offensive line, of course. He's coached an offensive line for 30 years, and he's got this head coaching job because of what he's done with the offensive line.
Yep.
I found a number of NFL draft selections, which totals 15 in the last 10 years along the offensive line and 7 number one picks, regardless of where he's been. So 3 starters are gone all along the offensive line. You got 78 starts coming back, and Joshua Brown's an incoming transfer from Florida that should be a standout at tackle. And our guy Brady Latham is also back on the interior.
So the way it looks like right now, Devin Manuel's going to end up probably with that left tackle spot, backed up by redshirt freshman Andrew Chambly, who's a good kid. I like Andrew a lot. Actually got to meet him at an event last year. Him and his dad, good people. Brady Latham, who's a veteran. I mean, this is a guy. Pretty sure he's been given the nod by multiple sites as a preseason all-conference guy. I think he's certainly in that mix. Bo Limmer, kind of all over the place with where people put him at, as far as whether he's a first-team All-SEC or not even worthy of being top 3. I mean, I'm going to say I think he probably does belong somewhere in there, but they've got him moved to center. Joshua Braun's going to end up at right guard, more than likely backed up by Joey Sua, who is his mom. Funny story, us being in Walmart land here down in Northwest Arkansas, his mom was actually a what we call a transplant. She came here from California. She worked for the company, and she moved to Bentonville. They moved her up to the corporate home office in Bentonville. Well, he loved the game of football, played it at Bentonville, and was good enough that he got recruited. It's really cool to see stories like that unfold around here, because we often talk about the vendors that work here, that live here, that move here from all across the country, and that maybe that would benefit the U of A, in terms of recruiting these kids. And there you go. There's one that's his mom was fortunate enough to get the job at corporate home office in Bentonville. So that's really cool. And I hope, I've only ever heard good things about him, but Joey Sue is probably going to be in the mix with Amarian Harris behind Joshua Braun, who's the Florida transfer. At right tackle, it's more than likely going to be Patrick Kutas, and then backed up by the Charlotte transfer, Tykes Crawford. I gave the offensive line, overall, this was a tough one. I gave it a B-, only because they're having to replace both the tackles and another interior player. So, yeah, that was a tough one. That was a tough one to grade out. But I think the future is bright there. Coach Kennedy's done a very good job. You lost Dalton Wagner at right tackle. Well, I think Patrick Kutas is the guy to take that spot. So I think they're in pretty good shape. But a B-, that could change by the end of fall camp. I could bump it up. But right now, I think it's about a B- grade for that group.
We always have a good time with Ty Hudson. You can do that as well. Head on over to Talk with Ty. It's right here on YouTube. Get your fill of the Hogs. And Arkansas starts, along with everyone else, very soon. Fall camp this week. We're 3 to 4 weeks away from football. Wide receiver, there were a couple notable transfers coming in. I'll mention a few. Isaac Teslaw is a guy that we've talked about a number of times that makes it to the big time now. So the jump from Division II, Hillsdale College, where he was one of the best players on that level, all the way to the SEC. We'll see if he's able to make that jump. Tyrone Bolden had 68 catches the last 2 years at Bowling Green. So again, it's not like he hasn't been on the field with big time competition, but only like once or twice a year. So there's a couple incoming transfers, and then a number of guys obviously held over from the 22 squad.
This is a tough one, in terms of grading, just like the offensive line. And it's also tough because of the amount of production that they ended up losing. When you talk about guys like Hazelwood, Landers, Katron Jackson, who transferred to Texas, the other two tried their hand in with the pros. Trey Knox, who I know is tight end, but he's a former wide receiver. He was definitely a favorite target of KJ, or at least there was that relationship between the two. I don't know that Knox ever really fully hit his ceiling here. We'll see what he does at South Carolina, but a lot of production gone in the passing game. And so that's going to put a lot of pressure on these new guys. Isaiah Centena, freshman. He's going to be a redshirt freshman, 5'11", 178 pounds. He's going to probably line up at that slot position. Looked consistent all through spring camp. I was really impressed with him. I would say that of the younger players, I think he might have the highest ceiling of that group. But Andrew Armstrong's graded out really high out of Texas A&M Commerce. It's I have him here at 6'4", 201. That might be wrong on his weight, but he's 6'4", roughly. Someone in the media said I think he's actually closer to 6'5", but we'll stick with 6'4" just to be conservative. He was someone all through spring camp that was – I don't know that I saw him drop a single pass, and if I did, he only did it once. Looked very consistent. Now, it's hard to judge when they're it's them going up against a mix of ones and twos in the secondary, a secondary that was not good a year ago, but it's also had a facelift since last season. No more Simeon Blair, a couple other guys. Like it's a new group over there. We'll see how much better. I don't know that I saw them get a ton of separation from these corners. But then again, there were some other times when they were wide open, and they found ways to slip in through the secondary, whether that was fastball, what these little mini quick pace scrimmages they do, or just in their one-on-one drills. There's certainly a lot of size. Secondary players are going to the media. They're going to Hogs Plus, and they're having these exclusive interviews with Hogs Plus, who's given this crazy amount of access. It's really cool for them, and they're talking to those guys about these receivers. And one of the players, I don't remember which one, came out and said these guys are tall and they're fast and they're very difficult to guard, very difficult to defend. So we know they've got size. I mean, their average. I mean, again, Andrew Armstrong 6'4", the guy behind him, Samuel Bakke, 6'3", 6'2", 6'3". Tyrone Broden, who you just mentioned from Bowling Green, he's 6'7". Isaac Tesla, 6'4", Jaden Wilson, 6'3". I mean, they have so much size. Even Bryce Stevens, who's considered one of their smaller guys, well, he's like 6 foot, 6'1", somewhere in there. I mean, they've got a pretty good mixed bag, but it's a lot of size. Tesla, you mentioned a second ago, he is someone that, I hope he can go out there and do what we saw in the scrimmage and in spring camp with these crazy one-handed grabs and whatnot. But if these guys, there's a lot on them because of the amount of turnover that they're dealing with. So there's going to be a little bit extra pressure on these guys this year. And if they adapt, if they remain coachable, if they're all 100% bought in and they're on the same page with KJ, I think it's going to be a very dangerous group. I gave them a B- score, but the potential there is, I think it's pretty high.
Yeah, the 4 leading receivers on the team are gone, including, and he's not among the 4, but our buddy Warren Thompson also not available anymore. But
he caught 12 passes last year. That, are you?
I'm not going to let it go. I'm going to make some kind of connection every time. He's going to live in infamy.
Yeah.
But the receiving core, and I just in doing some of the prep work that I've done for these previews, and folks, check them out. We are lining up like 25 teams. One of the things that I saw is lack of productivity coming back, but Sam Pittman loves the group that he's got. He thinks they're really going to surprise some people, that they've got the size that you just mentioned, Ty, and the talent to really be a quality SEC wide receiver core.
I was going to say the tight end group is another one to keep an eye on. You're going to see, again, it's another good mix of guys that have been here, like Ty Washington and Nathan Bax. And then you're going to have this mix of transfers. Varkey's Gums, who I'm very excited about. He might be this year's Warren Thompson. I'm just saying in a good way, and that I'm really hyped about him. And then they've got these incoming freshmen like Luke Hawes and Shamar Easter. They also brought in Francis Sherman. I don't really know what his role is going to be here. I'm assuming he's going to be a blocking tight end. He wasn't targeted a whole lot at Louisville. I think he might have been dealing with some injury stuff too. I'm not 100% sure, but Nathan Bax, 6'4", 250. One thing that I noticed with all this size they have at wide receiver, it's like the opposite at tight end. Varkey's Gums is 6'2", 200 and like 25, 230 pounds, something like that. Luke Hawes is 6'2", 6'3". Ty Washington's about 6'3", 6'4". The biggest player in that room is actually Shamar Easter, another guy I'm really excited about. Unfortunately, wasn't here during spring camp, but he's 6'5", 225 pounds. But I am excited for them, but it might be prolonged excitement. It might be beyond 2023. Like the future of that position seems really bright. Luke Haas and Shamar Easter were two highly touted tight ends out of high school. And Varkey's Gums, the transfer. If you get a second, anybody watching this, go watch his highlights at North Texas. He reminds me a little bit of a former player that played under Bobby Petrino, who now works with the media here, named DJ Williams. Reminds me a lot of him, 6'2", 6'3", 235 or so pound frame, but really athletic, pretty quick after the catch. I think the ceiling is high for them. It just may not be in 2023 just yet, or maybe it will. And if it's a position that really shines, I think it's going to be people like Luke Haas and Varkey's Gums that kind of lead the way at that position. But you're going to see a lot of Nathan Backs and maybe some Francis Sherman in there, again, the Louisville transfer. But they've actually got depth there going into spring camp or coming out of 2022. I was a little bit concerned. Now it's like, oh, okay, they did a good job. They addressed the depth situation there. Not only do I think they have depth, Mark, but I think they got quality depth at tight end.
You cannot bring up a former player without me not looking up his stats to make sure. Is that the guy that I remember? Yeah, DJ Williams was a good player. 152 catches in his career at Arkansas. I was just going to say, this is what I love about these conversations, because what happens is I do all the reading, and I watch about 6 or 7 Arkansas games a year, and I can only remember so much about what happened last year. And with the transfer portal and all of that, there's so much influx and transition that you can't even rely on what you saw last year. And then I will flip on Arkansas for the first time this year. And despite reading all this, what sticks in my mind is our conversations. And I'll be able to say, oh yeah, I remember Ty talking about that guy and Ty talking about this guy. And I remember that about this. And it immediately makes that connection for me that when I turn on the game, it's just not a bunch of numbers and names on the back of the jerseys and stuff that I read in a preview magazine. It's our conversations and what I remember about what you said about these individuals.
Yeah, well, I'm glad someone is remembering at least something. I usually get the what I get wrong thrown in my face from some people, but yeah, I enjoy these conversations. I like watching some of your other conversations you have with some other folks, especially on the SEC side of things. But I think it's good to listen to if you're a fan of college football. I'm not saying it's good for folks to listen to me, but just in general, if you're a fan of college football, I flip on Mark Rogers. I've got all your, I think they call it glowing up now. Is that what they call it? Glow up when you're bragging on somebody. I don't mind glowing up Mark Rogers a little bit because I feel like I'm saying that wrong, because I know you're going to have someone on that's pretty informative. So I know I'm probably at the bottom of that group, but I'm really happy that you have me on.
Well, we will say, SEC fans, that the previews of fall camp offense and defense, in addition to Arkansas here with Ty, that you can look forward to, some are already posted, some are coming. Kentucky, South Carolina, Tennessee, Georgia, LSU, Alabama, Auburn. We've got those nailed down for sure. So they're headed your way.
Tennessee's going to be dangerous, Mark. Tennessee's going to be dangerous.
I'm not going to argue that. Not at all. All right, folks. What else is dangerous is Ty when he gets on a roll. So you want to see that firsthand. Tusk Talk with Ty right here on YouTube. Got to check it out. Ty, always love it. Appreciate you being here. Enjoy fall camp. And we will reel you back in to talk some defense.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it, Mark.